Hello, everybody. Please welcome Andy to our podcast. Thank you, Andy, for joining us.
I am a retired marketing and sales executive for two companies, both of which had exceeded $60 million in sales. And I'm very proud to say that we always began to participate in the marketplace at the highest prices. So we never undercut anybody, but still always had dominant market share. I am retired, and I've also been a TV talk show host on my own. I've also had a national radio piece, a local radio piece. I'm an author, and I'm also published in local magazines here in Lake Worth, Florida during my retirement. So there's a lot for us to share and to really become involved in.
Andy, my name is Dan. It's a pleasure to meet you. I will be getting to know you along with our audience as we ask you questions and you answer them. We really appreciate you coming on. The reason we invite you on is because we like to share with our audience people they may never come across in regular life. And through your answers and through your stories, they may connect with you in a unique way. So you may say something they've never heard, or you may say something they've heard 5 times, but it's the way you say it that leads them to take a new action, which leads to a whole new direction in life. And if we have one overarching theme, it's simply this: we want to help people live their best life. And we know that by doing that is by sharing these different people and experiences and stories that you're going to share. So we're going to ask you a series of questions. They may seem all over the map, but they have that one purpose, which just is like, through your answers to these questions, people are going to go, wow, I really like this guy, Andy. And they might reach out to you, or they might just hear this one interview and then, it might change the direction of their life. So I'm going to start with the first question, is this: if I was a genie and could grant you just one wish, what would be your wish? Couple rules: you can't wish to become the genie, and you can't wish for more wishes. What is the wish I could grant you?
My wish is that I would be able to reach more people with motivational and sales training messages, because the people that I have reached, one of the most gratifying things is that they might see me a couple of years later. They might send me an email, and they'll come back to me and say, I want to thank you for that time we spent together. I want to thank you for the radio show. I want to thank you for your TV show, your book, because it changed my life. And what I would wish for is that I could reach more people, and that more people would know the secret of success, because it is no place other than right here. And many of us forget that. We look at all the other things that surround us in life, but yet success starts right here. And for a genie, that's what I would like to have everybody to understand.
Ooh, I love that wish. Starting right here is the key. What habits or beliefs have shaped you to who you are today?
What drives me is a desire to teach and a desire for people to be happy with what they are learning. And ever since I was younger, I was able, for some reason, to adopt to whatever environment I was thrown into, either good or bad, a tough situation or a good situation. And I began to say to myself, well, what is it? Do I have a gift? Do I have a knowledge? Was I blessed with something that other people aren't? The answer didn't matter. What really mattered is the ability to share the knowledge and the skills that I have to be with other people. So that's what drove me. So as a result of that, I said, okay, I might have been born with some inherent skills, but there's a lot more education that I can get. So I wanted to go out and take my base of skills and knowledge and talents and build from there. And there's an old expression, Ivy, that comes from Confucius back in the 1300s. And what does that mean? He said, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. So in plain English, for whomever is watching this, if you have the desire to succeed, there is always a teacher out there to give you the guidance that you need and want. It could be a book, it could be a seminar, it could be a coach, it could be anybody like that. It's up to you to find that teacher. And that's what drives me. I want to be the teacher that people look forward to help them succeed in their life. But I need to be good. I need to set the example. I need to have the background in education. And even though I'm retired, I consistently continue to learn.
So they say, when the student is ready, the teacher will arrive. So one of my favorite movies is Back to the Future. So if you had a time machine and you could travel, your current retired self could travel back to your younger self and give advice now, because you, this younger student, is ready to hear from your current self, the teacher. What advice would you give your younger self?
You did a great job. You were true to yourself, and you were true to those that are around you. And don't change anything in your life because it turned out exactly the way you're dreaming of it right now. Don't change anything. You hit your goals, you planned it out, you methodically looked for ways to make it work. You knew that there were going to be obstacles, and you did a great job. So continue to do what you set out to do, and then you will come back to yourself and say, hey, you know what? Great job. I'm really happy for you.
So let me rephrase this slightly different, because I love that answer. That means you're really happy with the way life turned out for you. So if you could go right into a high school class today and give them advice, what advice would you give them?
The advice I would give them would be somewhere along the following lines. The first thing I would ask them is, what do you want to do in your life? It's not your occupation. Forget the occupation. What do you want to accomplish? Because people choose their occupation not based on what they're going to do for their daily task. It's what their outcome and contribution to life and society and the world is going to be. So that would be my first question. And then instead of me dumping advice on them, I would ask them, what advice do you need to make sure that that goal that you just established for yourself is in fact attained? And based on their answers, not just me standing up there and babbling as a teacher, based on their answers, I would structure my delivery to each one of the students' needs and then reinforce it. But it even goes further than that. And that is, now that you've asked me for the advice, now that you have it, what are you going to do with it? Are you going to take this hour that I just spent in front of the classroom, go home and say, hey, that was a great discussion? Or are you in fact going to start to take the actions and implement the advice that you asked for to make sure that your goals are attained? And that's the way I would structure that. And actually, quite frankly, that's the way I've done it throughout my career. You ask somebody what they want, you ask them what they need, you fulfill that need. By the way, that formula works in sales also. Instead of just standing in front of somebody, dumping product information and dumping all of these references and everything else, and by the time you're 3 minutes into it, they're bored and asleep. You've got to ask them, what is it that you're looking for, and give them the answer. So I would structure it both the same way. And that's life, because you should never, ever be afraid to ask somebody for their advice. You might not like it. It might not fit your personality. You let them know that, and they'll make the necessary changes to adopt it to your background, your ethics, your profession, and your goals. And I love doing that.
Really like how you show up with your energy and your passion. You can tell you really care about helping other people succeed. Who in your life have been the most influence to you?
My former fiance. So who's my former fiance? My current wife of 50 years. God bless her. 50 years of magnificent marriage. And just to give you a little bit of a personal background, I met her on my 15th birthday. And whether you're spiritual, religious or not, please accept what I'm about to say. Doesn't mean you have to accept it, but in terms of spirituality, but I always look at her as a present from upstairs with a no return policy and a lifetime warranty. And from the day we met in high school on my 15th birthday, she has been the best influence in my life and continues to do so to this very day. Now, you might be asking, okay, fine, how does she do that? Well, encouragement. You know, when somebody wants to go for their goals, there's two different people. One say, you'll never get it. You're not capable of doing it. Your background is bad. Society says you'll never make it. Your grades are awful. And you know what happens? You listen. You listen to that. There have been so many studies that say every time you surround yourself with somebody who's negative, and you listen to what they say, guess what? You're going to turn out negative. And this, most everybody knows, but it's true. My wife and my former fiance and my girlfriend and my lover were quite the opposite. Every time we came up with an idea, there was a sense of encouragement. There was a sense of, yeah, this will be done. I have faith in you. I know it. And I'll tell you one of the biggest things ever. I had a 24-and-a-half-year job, and I was getting a high salary, great benefits, terrific title, in charge of $60 million worth of business. And I survived 9 previous reorganizations. They got me on the 10th. I went home, and Carol said to me, I'm not worried. You know what? Take 5 months off. Do whatever you want. But after 5 months, you got to go find yourself a job. And I did. That paid me 10% more than the job that I was let go of. And I had higher benefits and more freedom, and it worked out perfectly. So she's been my influence. Now, the question is, for you, the one that's listening, who's your influence? Who have you picked out? Is it somebody negative that says you can't do it? Well, you know what? Get them out of your life, or her. Get them out. You don't need them. Let them go someplace else. And by the way, do you know why people say to other people you won't succeed? They don't want you to succeed. Why don't they want you to succeed? Because they didn't. And the last thing they want to see is someone else succeed when they couldn't and didn't do what was necessary to succeed. So they don't want to see anybody else do it, so they talk you out of it. Get rid of them. Find somebody who encourages you. Find someone who believes in you. And I want to add one more very, very important part. People always say you've got to have self-confidence in order to succeed. Biggest thing in the world, self-confidence. Let these words resonate. That is wrong. It's okay to have self-confidence. The key to success in life, however, is for other people to have confidence in you. Once you transfer your self-confidence to somebody else, guess what happens? They trust you, they buy from you, they promote you, they embrace you, they support you, and that's what they do. So if you're loaded with self-confidence but have not yet achieved the goals that you intended to, there's only one reason. You have not been able to get other people to have confidence in you. And you need to change that, and you need to shift it. And guess what? That's what Carol, my wife, always did with me. I was able to transfer my confidence to her, and she fed it back right to me.
Andy, I want to set up a scenario where there are no people in this equation. You're not going to love it, but let's just say you were sentenced to life in prison. So you're not around anybody else. It's just you in a cell. But the warden says, Andy, I'm going to give you one book to take with you. This is the last book and the only book you're going to have the remainder of your life. What book do you bring with you to prison? And why that book?
I'm a spiritual person. So I would actually bring what we call in our religion, the Old Testament or the Torah. So why? Why that of everything else? Well, number one, I don't want fiction. I don't want to read about people and their phony stories, because that's not real life. I'm not going to read about business, because the chances are I'm not going to get back into business again. Self-help books probably will never, ever help me. So what I will go to is the Old Testament. And for those who are not of my faith, there's the New Testament or whatever other book that you subscribe to that's spiritual, because in there are life lessons. And it doesn't take one read to understand those life lessons. It takes a lifelong of rereading, interpreting, and understanding. And what these books do for you, the Old Testament, the New Testament, it doesn't matter. They help you self-explore. They help you analyze. You still get to use your mental acumen, because yes, physically, you might be down, but mentally, you always want to keep that sharp. Because you know what? We've heard of stories where people were imprisoned for their lifetime, but yet what happened? The laws changed. Somebody found out that they weren't guilty. They went ahead, and when they got out of prison, yeah, they could have returned to crime. But if you really take a look at those folks, what did they do? They bettered their lives, even when they were falsely incarcerated. Now, let's assume, for example, Dan, I was really guilty of what I did. Yeah, I could rot away, or I can just take advantage of the spirituality and immerse myself in that, keep myself always learning, keep myself always sharp.
I like what you picked out. It's a very practical way to live your life, a sensible way to take those stories and see how they're relevant in today's time. What is a superpower you wish you had?
Superpower would be the ability, for lack of a better expression, to be somewhat immortal. Now, some people say X-ray vision, I want to fly through the sky and all that kind of stuff. I wish that I could be immortal, because quite frankly, I love life. I love it. And I don't want to leave it. I don't want life to leave me. So the superpower would be a life of immortality. Now, one might say, okay, well, does that mean the person will develop an ego? He's going to become godlike. This person with immortality is going to want to control others. No, quite the opposite. Immortality gives me an opportunity just to reach and teach more people. And that's what I would do with the time given on earth. Quite frankly, I'm retired, and financially, I can afford to do anything I want. But how do I spend most of my time during the day? I teach. I either give lectures, Zoom lectures, spiritual lessons, business lessons, sales lessons. It doesn't matter. This is how I spend my retirement, by living out my dream of being able to help and teach others. And that's what excites me. So when I go to sleep at night and I put my head on the pillow, I always have a sense of fulfillment. What kind of fulfilling day did I have in my life? And when I go to sleep and I say, today was a fulfilling day, guess what happens? I sleep well at night, and I wake up in the morning, even though I'm retired, and say, I'm ready for another day.
I love your energy and I love your attitude. I am curious though, I'm sure you've come across people that are faking it, right? Like their attitude and energy is maybe for a malicious reason. They're trying to get somebody to do something, influence them, or really trick them into doing something that you don't think they should do. So if you're trying to warn people about bad advice or stuff that people are putting out, that you're like, oh, no, be careful of that. And then what advice would you have to counteract it?
So I would give them a definition of the word trust. Trust. And so what does trust mean? Well, most people say the person is believable, the person is honorable, he's got a good reputation and all that kind of stuff. That's not the real answer. The real answer of trust is as follows. When the other person perceives that you have their best interest in mind before your own. And that's very classic. In other words, you don't trust somebody if you think they're doing it for their own purposes or their own good. You do trust someone if you really believe that they have your best interest in mind, even if it means that they will not make as much money or be hurt or might be hurt as a result of the actions that are going to be taken. So when it comes to advice and surrounding yourself with people, you got to look at them square in the eye and try and understand what their motivation is. Is their motivation for their gain, or is their motivation for your gain? And when you really get down to it and you learn the science of body language, which is really precise, and you could really tell the difference if someone's faking it or not, that's when you be able to understand the advice that they're giving me, the guidance that they're trying to give me, the phoniness of their happiness, the phoniness of their enthusiasm. Is that for their benefit or for mine? And once you can define those two, you begin to trust people, you open up, and you accept their advice as genuine advice that helps you before them. And that's the way I would suggest people take a look at situations to see whether a person has their interest in mind or not. Now, Dan, I know we might not be referring to this, but that's where sometimes a conflict comes in sales. You have the person that has the money, you have the person that has the product, the person or service. The person has the product or service wants the other person's money. No question about it. The key to success is, how much does that person trust you that you have their best interest in mind? And when they do, they will release the money and probably and most likely pay you more for that than they would anybody else.
A lot to think about, and I will be re-listening to this because I'm sure I will learn and glean a lot more. Mm-hmm. What is a question that we should have asked that we didn't ask?
The question is, what can I do to make my life better? So what we did here is we talked about outsiders. We talked about inanimate objects, people we don't know, people who are viewing us, and that's fine. So each and every one of us, meaning you and Dan, might have asked, okay, what can I do to make my life better? So Ivy, what you fed me back is, I heard what you said. I'm going to re-listen to it. But what we also want to add to it is, as you say so many times, what action steps will I have? And I know one of your favorite things are showing up, okay? So how can I show up with all this information? And that's probably one of the questions. So I'm going to turn that back to you. And I'm going to say, just like the high school question, what is it precisely that you want to accomplish in life? And I'm not asking where you see yourself in 5 years, because that's one of the silliest questions in the world. Okay. But I'm talking broad scope. What is it that you want to do in life? What's your goal? Well, Ivy, how would you answer that? What is it that you really want to accomplish in your life? What is it that when you put your head on the pillow at night, you know you're living a fulfilling life?
That I've really made the most out of living life. I've taken the time to experience every day to the fullest and doing life without regret.
Ooh, okay, life without regret. Okay, all right. So that's a quite, now back to your point, Dan. So that's something, again, that each and every one of the people who are listening to this or watching this, that's what you got to ask yourself. Am I showing up for work just to work? Am I showing up for work just to get a paycheck? Am I showing up for work so that when I'm out of work, I can go to a bar and meet with my friends and do what? Complain about work. Or do I want to show up with my friends and meet at a bar and talk about how great life is? You know, there's an interesting expression. Misery loves company. So I have a challenge for everybody. The next time you go out to a bar, listen to the conversations that people are having. Listen to the eavesdrop, not on your own, but on somebody else's. And what do you think most of the time is spent doing? Complaining. Complaining. What about? About life, the job, the sale didn't go right, this customer was, you sit there and you complain. And when you complain, are you going to drink a glass of water? No, you're going to douse yourself with alcohol. But if you go to the bar and you start talking about how great life is, you have something more to accomplish. And when you go to each day to help Ivy and everyone else out, every exercise that you do every day should be done to plan for your ultimate vision. Every single one of them. Does that mean you have to be working 24/7? No, because part of the fulfillment is living a recreational life. A recreational life filled with the joy of life. Now, I can see some eyes out there and say, you know what? This guy is not realistic. This guy does not live in the world that I live in. This guy is out of his mind. Maybe he's one of the few that live a happy life. I can't relate to him. I can see you guys doing that. But the question is, the fact that you are doing that says that you have not yet established the goal of understanding every step that you take, every action that you take, gets you to that fulfilling goal of living a great life. And Ivy, I love what you said. You said, I don't want to finish my life and say I have regrets. You bet. Don't want to do that. And if you don't want to have regrets, then guess what? Stop complaining. And if you are complaining, do something about it.
You reminded me of two things. So first, the word commiserate, right? If you think about it, you're listening to somebody with empathy or like you're understanding them. But really think about the word commiserate has the word almost like miserable in it, right?
That's right.
So you say misery loves company. Well,
Yeah.
You're commiserating with somebody, you're giving them company to be miserable,
Right.
which is interesting. The other thing you made me think of was Dale Carnegie's book, How to Make Friends and Influence People, because the number one rule is never criticize, condemn, or complain. And you're absolutely right. That's what we spend most of our time doing, criticizing, condemning other people, and complaining about whatever our life circumstances are. And I think most people miss out on the fact that you don't have to just do things. You get a choice, right? What you do. So if you're going to do it, like Ivy said, you'll be able to look yourself in the mirror and go like, I gave it my all. I did it to the best of my ability. Because if not, like, stop doing it. If you're not going to do it well, don't do it, because you have a choice. Unless you're literally in prison, right? And you can't get out because you have no choice. You're living a life where you have choices. So why choose to do something if you're going to complain about it?
So Dan, if I may, there's an expression that you used that I'm going to key on, and that is to the best of my ability. Believe it or not, that's a negative thought. When anybody says, I'm going to do it to the best of my ability, that's a negative thought. Why? Because you have already established a border of what your ability is. And gosh forbid you go over that ability. It can't happen because I already know what my abilities are. It's a bunch of malarkey. You can't say that. You can't say I'm going to do it to the best of my ability. You can't say it, I'm going to do it the best that I can. What should be said, what must be said, is I'm going to do it better than anybody else. Because the moment you do it better than anyone else, what happens? You're the successful one, and they're looking up at who? They're looking up at you. So for everybody that's listening, oh, I tried, I did it to the best of my ability. Hogwash. You will do better once you shed yourself of this border that you put on yourself that my ability is only to this level. Because you know what? When you go on a trampoline, listen to this very carefully. When you go on a trampoline the very first time, do you jump real high and do somersaults and all that kind of stuff? No, you're not ready for that yet. So you're going to bounce up and down a couple of times. And you're going to be bouncing up and down the same ferocity and the same number of beats per minute or per second. No, what are you going to do? Every time you feel more comfortable, you're going to go higher and higher and higher and higher and higher. And guess what? The world champion in that sport or any other sport, do you think they have limits? Do you think they get up in the morning, the world champion, and says, I'm going to do it to the best of my ability? No. They get up in the morning and they're going to say, I'm going to do it better than anybody else in the world can. But guess what? There's 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 people behind that person saying, okay, you now set the bar for me to go over. And that's the way to look at life. One other point, if I may, Dan, talking about complaining and being happy. I mentioned earlier that I had my own TV show. It was on motivation and success in life. It was very successful in the market that it was in. It was always featured in the paper, newspaper. This is the show to watch on a Saturday morning, etc. I said, whoa, I'm going to go on national TV. I'm not going to mention the name of the network. So I contacted national TV. I showed them my films. I showed them the whole thing. And they loved it. They loved the presence, the show, the idea, but they didn't take it. I said, why not? They happened to be a news channel. And they said, look, we're in the business to make people angry. The angrier we make them, the more viewers we have. You're in the business to make people happy. That's opposite our mission. And that just gives you a bit of an insight as to the way the human psyche works.
If people heard you here tonight, even though you're retired, it sounds like you're still actively doing a lot of stuff, right? You said you're doing stuff online and you're helping people with various things. If people would like to reach out to you, what would be the reasons they reach out to you other than just you seem like a friendly guy and I just want to talk to you? And what's the best way? Like, how would they reach out to you?
Well, they would reach out to me for one of two reasons. One, I heard you're full of malarkey. Okay, fine. And I want those people to call me. Believe it or not, you can email me. And how do you email me? It's speaking of Andy Greenberg at Comcast.net. Speaking of Andy Greenberg at Comcast.net. If you felt I was full of baloney, email me, because I'd love to have a dialogue and conversation with you. And then the other part of the folks that will call me and say, hey, I kind of like what you had in mind. Can we talk more? And I say, obviously, I'd love to chat with you more. Speaking of Andy Greenberg at Comcast.net. And what I'll do is I'll send you a clip from my YouTube channel of some of my TV programs with all my motivational ideas. And I want to just mention something. Anybody can write a book or say belief, attitude, all this kind of stuff. You don't need me for that. So what I did something totally different. Just like the trampoline, I invented 1,353 different ways to be motivated by simply looking at everyday objects. And if they want some insights into that, that would be great. Regrettably, my book, I don't have a book to sell anymore. The publisher went out of business. I can't get any replenishment, so I'm not going to try and sell you a book. But what I will do is just send you clips of my TV show, and you can pick it up from there. And who did I have on my TV show? People like you, meaning the average person who became successful. I had some teenagers there who decided to get into the fashion business at age 13, and they became internationally known. I had an individual who was 7 years old and won an award. I had a 91-year-old lady who won all types of amateur acting awards in the community that we lived in, and we can all learn from them. And that's what I would look forward to. It's speaking of Andy Greenberg at Comcast.net.
Thank you so much, Andy. It was a pleasure having you on our podcast, and we really appreciate it.
Well, and I fulfilled my goal by by working with you guys and getting the message out as you do, because I watch your videos, Ivy, and they are impactful, they are powerful, and the audience who's watching tonight were not drawn to me. They were drawn to you and to Dan because you've got a following. So by working together, we were able to elevate their thought processes and their life, and it was my pleasure to be part of that process.